and on Periscope as well. We are live at Rugby Park tonight for Kilmarnock against Hearts. He's smiling already.
Daryl. Good evening, Daryl.
Good evening. Chris Sutton's here, Michael Stewart, Stephen Craigan as well. I'm sure we've got plenty to discuss because the split is coming this weekend, but I know you always like to start on the match, so it should be good tonight, shouldn't it?
It should be good. Look, it's not that I'm not interested in Kilmarnock, but Hearts are the big talking point, aren't they, I think, in the country at the moment. Some people standing here have been very critical of the manager about the way he got the job and what have you, and should he have been in the job in the first place. But they got the win last week, Hearts, and they need to back it up. I think it's a really important end to the season for Hearts.
Do you think he's done a good job?
Do I think he's done a good job? Results suggest otherwise, Michael. Do you?
You can use his name, by the way.
So, yeah. So do you?
Ian Cathro, I think
do you think
talking
he's
about
done a good job? Personally?
No,
now, you've been quite critical. You came out
think
and said that you felt as if people wanted him to fail and not to succeed. You said previously when... just after he got the job.
Well, I think there was
I can't understand where you got that from.
An element of that, Stephen. I think you can understand that.
Well, I speak to a lot of people in Scottish football, and when Ian Cathro comes up, daily basis, weekly basis, when you're playing under 20 games and first team games, people don't speak about Ian Cathro wanting to fail. So, he's even come out last week and said that as well. So, I think he's been a little bit paranoid. Football management does that too. He makes you a little bit paranoid and makes you look over your shoulder. So, focus on winning games.
We've got an exclusive interview with Ian Cathro later on. You can hear that from 7 o'clock in Scottish Football Extra. What have you made of the last few weeks at Hearts?
Interesting. Quite clearly, things have not been particularly great. It's the results, as Chris said, haven't been the way that he would have expected and the way he would have wanted. And it was a huge, huge result that they picked up, and they've got to back it up. They really have to, beat teams like Kilmarnock. Beating Dundee at home is not how Hearts are going to be judged. And far too often this season they've had a result. Since Ian Cathro's come in, had a result not backed up. So this is why the game here tonight is very, very important.
Yeah, you've said that a few times now. Yeah.
Do you think it's strange, Michael, that a couple of weeks ago he came out and Ian Cathro said that Hearts were a team in work in progress. Considering when he took over, they were second. He's made them a work in progress. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's regressed. There's no doubt about it. And there is no doubt about that. And
he'll still be there at the start of the next season, though. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Of course.
I think we also need a bit of clarity as to who made all the changes, who wanted all the changes, who signed a lot of the players as well. I mean, was it Ian Cathro? Was it Craig Levein? There's more.
Well, look,
Daryl,
for me, that whole subject opens up a whole other can of worms in terms of the director of football is meant to be there to maintain and create continuity and stability
and recommend players.
Yeah, and signing 9 players in January flies in the face of that. So
who do you think signed the players, Michael?
I don't know. That's my point. There's a sort of deafening silence from the director of football, and I don't think it's helpful in this case.
Do you agree with that?
I don't think it's important there's a bit of clarity.
But do you think they need it, though? If they're in an environment where they keep saying, well, do they need to put clarity out there? They seem quite content
there are question marks now, over this relationship between Levein and Cathro, and Anne Budger's statement says that Craig Levein's job covers a lot of bases or
so
work.
It covers everything in the football department.
Which is...
it's a big job.
It is a big job, but I think, there's still question marks over whether Cathro picks a team. He's come out and said he did. We have to trust him on that.
We know that now, don't we?
I think the recruitment's the important thing. Who had the say in the recruitment? I mean, it looks from the outside like, they got their heads together and, they're both responsible.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that Ian Cathro picks a team. There isn't any doubt about that. Yeah. But in terms of the recruitment, that has clearly got to be one of the big remits of the director of football. So he has an input in that as well. But I think ultimately the final decision comes down to the head coach and his staff.
Will season tickets be affected by the end of this season?
No, it's not
yes, because they're one stand down. Starting next season.
No, they're not.
Well answered. I was asking
Bit
Michael,
too smart. Sorry for you there. Go on, Michael.
Well, they're not, because it's going to be ready in September.
Yes, true.
So they're getting the first stage of the games to play away from home. So season tickets are not
going
to be down, Daryl. He was wrong.
Okay.
Ill-informed.
We'll come on wrong sometimes, don't we? Michael Gaw is asking, does Chris think Jig should get the Kilmarnock job full-time? Lee McCulloch?
Do I think... yes, I do. I think, things are settled down... under Lee McCulloch. I actually think Lee Clark, did a decent job here. I think after the, it was a debacle last season.
Is that because he was your under-21 teammate?
Lee Clark's a very
That's
good
exactly what it was.
I didn't know him overly well, but I'll tell you what he did do. He gambled, didn't he? And massive recruitment. And
most of those players are not here now,
though. At the start, they are. But it's a big risk. At the start of the season, I thought that they would be struggling again this season, and it looks like they're not going to get relegated. It'll be in that playoff.
After the Betfred Cup campaign, I thought they're gone. Yeah. They're really going to struggle. Motherwell beat them here first game of the season. Doesn't happen very often. Motherwell winning games, but once they did, you thought they're in trouble.
I think
but somehow they've got it together and they've managed to pick
I think
themselves
now, under Lee McCulloch, it's a better fit. I think that they look like they've got a bit more of an idea and a structure about them, a bit more...
than Lee Clark?
Yeah, I do. I think that...
And yet he's still not been given the job.
Well, I mean, there's
He'll get the job.
I
think so.
There was a little bit of talk that Lee didn't want to be named...
Just in case things went wrong.
Aye.
Of course.
So I don't think there's any doubt that he'll
What are
get
they
the
waiting
job.
for?
No, I think Lee McCulloch didn't want to take it in case there was a danger of being relegated.
Get Chris Boyd
There
in
is
as
still a
coach.
danger.
Aye, but no, I think
Slightly
I
far-fetched,
think
but-
Kilmarnock are safe because, as I said, I think they've done relatively well since Lee McCulloch came in, and I think he'll be a good appointment.
Lots more on that to come later. A few points to get through, a few questions as well. Stephen Lavery is saying, Effie Ambrose Ballon d'Or?
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
He's done well against Dumbarton. He was terrific against Ayr, who's trained 1 day a week the odd time. Come on. This is an international defender who's played in the Champions League. He should be starring in Championship football. Come on.
Yeah, but
he
you know what?
He's done well,
He has, and he's had a lot of knockers. One standing there with the purple microphone, and the truth is. You know, things haven't gone well for him at times at Celtic, and I admired the way he's gone about his business at Hibs. I said he'd be world class in the Championship at Hibs, and that is the way it's proven.
Yeah,
Is
you got one
that
right.
possible? Is that not a
Thomas Crowley's
bit of a
asking.
contradiction in terms, that one?
Yes, Michael, it is.
Well,
ask
what I was going
Chris
to say
Sutton.
about
Yeah,
Effie
go on,
Ambrose
go on.
was that
Sorry.
I think he has actually done well because I think the style of his game, irrelevant of what level he's playing at, he's prone to making mistakes, and he hasn't at Hibs. So I think that he has done well.
He's not prone to making
but he
mistakes
maybe
at
has,
Hibs.
and he just hasn't been punished, Michael, as much in the
What are you
Championship.
talking about?
Carry on.
So that's why he's
He's
done
on the
well.
wind-up, I think.
That's why
what
he's
you
done
call
well.
it. Right, Thomas
made
Crowley's
any
asking,
mistake.
ask Sutton
Yes.
what's his
No, go
thoughts
on,
on
Chris.
Michael
No, Mr.
O'Halloran.
Sutton.
Ask him Sutton.
Played in the under-20s today against Celtic.
yes, he
and Celtic
did.
won 4-1.
He turned up for that one.
Yeah, he did.
dear.
He was there on time.
Aye.
Oh, he's bang out of order, and you know, it's
for
interesting
turning
the
up on
way. Well, he turned up late, didn't he, or didn't turn up at all? Interesting the way that Pedro is showing Mark Warburton the way he's dealing.
So you're meant to be
with players.
Mr. Sutton, but he's Pedro. Is that how it works, is it?
Well, Pedro's fine, first name terms.
Any other thoughts on O'Halloran? What happened this week?
Disappointing, you know, particularly for young players, and you see a senior player not turning up for one of your games. You know, that's their life and soul. As under 20 players, you know, that's their big game. That's where they're trying to make the impression. I always think senior players have a huge role when they come down. Set a good example. Maybe there was miscommunication, misunderstanding, I don't know, but he played today, so that's the important thing, that he's going to try and rebuild his Rangers.
You can't
team,
do
that's for
that. It is
No, you can't. Bang out of order.
totally unacceptable.
Okay, Murray McDonald is asking, where does Celtic need to improve next season?
Centre half. I think that you know, if they're wanting to go and challenge and be more successful in the Champions League, that I think collectively as a group, Brendan Rodgers has done really well to tighten up at the back. But I think individually at times in the Champions League you get stretched. You've got to go one-on-one against top strikers. I still think that they need to improve, and that's the weakest part of the team for me.
If Paddock Roberts goes back to Manchester City, I think they'll need another winger. They'll need somebody like Scott Sinclair, kind of someone who will come in and give that edge to the team.
Well, it's going to
You
be
can take men
interesting because
off.
he signed this new contract, isn't it? And I don't believe he would have signed the new contract unless he had guarantees over the
He
summer.
said
and
no
he's
big
going to
players
spend.
were leaving during the summer. That's what he's already
But
stated.
big players coming in as well.
Yeah.
You know, you would expect.
Don Yak is asking a few for you tonight. Chris Sutton, do you think Hibs will succeed in the top league?
Oh, I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? Because will Hibs invest again? Is their squad good enough to compete in the top flight? Neil Lennon's done a really good job this season. And, you know, I think the interesting fact, who's going to be the #1 team in Edinburgh next season?
I think Hibs will do well, and I think
Yeah,
I think they're
agree.
better suited, and it shows up in their games against top flight opposition. I think Hibs are capable, with the squad they've got, of going and challenging for the top 6 straight away.
Hibs over Hearts
Absolutely.
next season?
Well, a lot depends on the recruitment at Hearts and the
On
start
that
to the
point,
season.
Jamie Devlin's asking, what type of players do you think Hearts and Cathro need to sign then?
I think they need to get a bit more of a few more players that are used to the Scottish Premiership. You know, there's too many foreign players, and I understand that obviously the January market's difficult to go and get guys that are from the British Isles, but I think they need to get a bit more of an identity to the team that are going to understand the league.
How many
who would you bring in then?
How many would you keep out the current team?
Walker will stay. Nicholson, if they can potentially keep him. Gonsalves will stay. He'll get a new back four, I would think. All back four out of contract. Novak, young player, probably needs a full back four. You know,
Possibly.
midfield players.
You're obviously hoping for a Suitor to come back
Yeah.
in.
Callum Patterson, if he stays.
Aaron
if he doesn't
Hughes will
stay.
be staying. No,
Yeah.
I mean there's
Yeah.
talk Aaron Hughes
Well, Aaron
will
would be one
staying.
of the three or four
Yeah.
centre halves. But I think it's because he spoke about having
Everyone's
a
staying.
certain style of playing. He needs players in to suit his style. Sometimes when you take over a club and you've got a mindset of how you want to play, and those players don't fit in. The summer's the time to move them on.
Do you not think, though, like you look at it, and again, this is why the results when you first come in are so important, it's degenerated into where is that style now? You know,
right.
it isn't apparent. When he first came in, it was clear what he was trying to do, but then of late, it looked very sort of disjointed.
Yeah, loads of questions coming in, by the way, and I think we're about to finish. But Dale McPhee is saying, should they be signing players like Kenny Miller, Christoph Berra as well? Do they lack leadership on the park?
Yeah, well, I mean, that would fall into the category of guys that understand the league, you know, and I think that is important as well. You know, experienced guys that will lead the way for. You know, there's some good youngsters in that squad.
Yeah.
I mean, well, youngsters in terms of 22, 23, and I think a few more experienced players that understand the league would be helpful to the team.
They need a big
overhaul. We're out of time. I think we're out of time.
That was perfect timing.
That was excellent then, wasn't it? Great, because we'll be back on at 7 o'clock. You're happy. Scottish Football Extra from 7 o'clock tonight, the build-up to the game from 7:30. See you then.